Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so the inception of this video came from me finishing the newest book by Lila Sage called Soul Searching. This is a new series that she's come out with, pitched as a paranormal romance series, and well, I say series, like companion novels, so it's the Sweetwater Peak novel. So I'm assuming there's going to be more in this series that, spoiler alert, I shall not be reading. So I picked this one up, I mean, partially because this cover is just so gorgeous. Maybe if I take the light off a little bit, it'll stop reflecting. Oh, that got really dark though. Not helping. But the cover is so gorgeous, and I know that a lot of people like Lila Sage for her cowboy romance novels. I've never read a cowboy romance novel, so I haven't read her cowboy romance novels either. But I wanted to give it a try because I have loved paranormal romance, paranormal mysteries for a very, very long time. It's definitely a genre that I gravitate to, especially like the urban fantasy, paranormal mysteries, like romance kind of thing. So I'm constantly looking for new authors, and it is interesting. I think a lot of these romance authors probably grew up with the same books that I did, and so they're trying to like go into the genre. Like this, for example, or from Allie Hazelwood, we have both Bride and the newest book, Mate. And this book was not for me. This is pitched as a paranormal romance, and I just feel like that's not the case. I mean, I guess because our main character here, Collins, can speak with ghosts and see ghosts. She's like a medium, I suppose. That makes this a paranormal romance, but realistically, it's kind of... She can't speak to the ghosts, like, for 80% of the book or something like that. Like, she can't speak to the ghost currently, so that's like her biggest problem here is like over the last year she can't speak to ghosts. She can still kind of see the orbs, but she like cannot contact them, and is basically going back home to Sweetwater Peak to like reconnect, because Sweetwater Peak is very haunted, and her twin sister Clark can both speak and see ghosts. So, you know, it's set up for the paranormal elements, but I just felt like it was such a mundane, non-paranormal style writing. Like, it literally felt like she just slapped this on top of a typical romance, and I also felt no connection to these characters. The dialogue didn't work for me, just a lot of this didn't work for me. I think me and Lila Sage are just not compatible as reader and author, and that is a-okay. But I felt like if you were looking for more ghost, or just like books that had like that kind of vibe or something like that, that I could provide some suggestions for you. If you love this book and you're like, I want more books that are cozy with ghosts, you know, not necessarily horror, with maybe a romance element. Or if you're like me and you're like, I did not get what I wanted from this book, and I'm looking for some alternatives. So I thought I'd make this quick video because I have quite a few. I was like noodling on it a little bit, and I was like, I have quite a few books that I've read that have ghosts kind of in the center, or they contribute to the story, or they kind of push the story in a certain direction. So I thought it would be interesting to go ahead and give you some of these recommendations here. I know spooky season's ending, but some of these are cozy ghost stories, or cozy stories with ghosts. I think you could still go into November and December reading these books, or even take them into Winterween. So let's get into my recommendations for you. The first two books I'm going to recommend to you, which I've talked about before, they were in my witch, like 13 witchy reads video that I did last year, which I will put down below, but this series was on there before, and I'm going to talk about it again because yes, it is witchy, but there are also ghosts, so it works perfectly. And this one I feel like really kind of matches the idea of someone being able to see and speak to ghosts, because that is the main character here in this story. So we have the first book in this series is In the Company of Witches by Orly Wallace, and then the second one is When the Crow's Away. And hopefully, if enough people go out and read these novels, we will get a third one, which I'm really hoping for, because I liked the first one, but I really, really liked the second book, and I liked where the author was going with this series. So here's hoping. They did a republish on it, so if you haven't purchased it, purchase it. Get it from your library, request it, so I can get a third book. So this one I think really lines up with like kind of the plot line here. We have a small town. This takes place in Evanfall, but like I mentioned, there are witches. So we have the, what are they? Warren witches? Yes, the Warren witches. So our main character is Bryn. She lives with her 2 aunts and her uncles in their bed and breakfast that they've been manning for a very long time here in Evanfall. And similar to Collins, we've had a situation for Bryn where her life has taken a turn for the worse. In Bryn's case, her husband passed away 2 years ago from a very sudden heart attack, like a widowmaker heart attack, and she's been deep in grief. And so she has kind of stopped using her powers and is not even sure if she can still use them. But something, each of these witches has like their own affinities, and Bryn's affinity is speaking with the dearly departed. And so what happens is a woman named Constance Grave passes away in their bed and breakfast, and Bryn ends up trying to figure out what happened because they think that she was murdered, and her aunt is a prime suspect. So she has to reacquaint herself with her powers and help solve Constance's murder. It is a cute and cozy read. It deals a lot with grief. We have kitties, we have a raven, we've got just a family of fun witches and just a cute little town. And like I mentioned, there is a second book. I really like this book. I think you will too. And you know, I think it's kind of like the murder mystery of the week, you know, the book here with cozy vibes. So definitely like a paranormal cozy mystery with possibly a sprinkle of romance in the future if this series can continue on. So highly recommend. The next 2 books that I'm going to recommend are, they do have ghosts, but we don't have characters who are necessarily speaking to ghosts on a daily. Like, that's not like necessarily one of the main plot drivers, but there is ghosts in there that are predominantly featured. So the first one is House of Frank by Kay Sinclair. I got this. This is the Fake Crate edition. So gorge. Look at this. The lighting is making this so crazy, but it's so gorgeous. But that's not why we're here. So the House of Frank is actually a bindery book, which I think is so awesome. And Kay's book, it's another book that deals with grief. We have our main character. Oh, well, I guess that's kind of similar. We are still following some similar vibes here, now that I'm thinking about it. So, still deals with grief. We have another witch in here. Her name's Saika, and she is finally going to enact her sister's final request. She is going to get her remains planted in the Ash Gardens. And so she ends up going to the house of Frank, who's the guy who manages these gardens, and he offers her basically a position because they need a witch to tend to the house. And she accepts the offer because she's not ready to let go of her sister. But the problem is since her sister's death, she hasn't been able to use her powers. And so she has been using this piece of a falling star that she's had for a long time. But the star is dwindling, and she is really trying to find herself, and there are a lot of people who live in this house who are also there for various reasons and kind of working through different things. And the reason I put this on here is because there is a ghost who lives in the house, and he is like part of this found family. a prominent character in the story. So it's still cozy, a little bit more fantasy, I would say, than both the Evanfall series and Soul Searching, but I definitely think a cute and cozy read, and will kind of tickle that itch a little bit with ghosts and witches and all those things. Okay, this one is definitely more of a Halloween-y vibe, but it's super cozy still. I think you could enjoy reading this into winter. So this was one of my favorite books of last year, and it's A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallace Kinney. Another witch book. I actually think I recommended this book before I read it because I was so interested in it. But we follow Hecate, or Kate. She lives in Ipswich, which is in the Massachusetts area, and she is part of a coven there. Her mother's sisters, all these live there, and she is a hedge witch. So she lives kind of in a cottage on the outskirts. Every witch kind of like picks their affinity, but hers was kind of strange because her mom picked her affinity, and nobody really knows why, but she enjoys being a hedge witch, and she's also dealing with grief. Her mom passed away recently, and I think this is the first Halloween that they're putting together since her mom passed away. Why I'm still throwing this book in here is there is a connection with death, first off, but there's also a spirit that is kind of like a bit of an inciting incident in the beginning of the story. So I think that still counts, and it's got that small town vibe still. It's got that coziness. We do have a prominent romance here. I think a far more compelling romance than Soul Searching, and this is also a Hades and Persephone retelling. So if you like that, I would insist checking it out. Like I mentioned, it is a favorite of mine from last year, so pick it up. Not as ghosty as some of our other ones, but definitely worth the read. Wow. Okay, the next two that I'm going to put on here are audiobooks, so I don't have them physically, but I do think these both prominently feature ghost in the plot and their main characters and all that good stuff. So the first one is one I read last year that I really enjoyed, and that's A Grim Reaper's Guide to Catching a Killer by Maxie Dara. And this follows Kathy. She's like a modern day Grim Reaper, and it's actually like a corporation. So it's like her day job. She like clocks in, she goes and helps people cross over, and then she goes about her day. And at the moment, she's kind of in a pickle because she's 8 months pregnant. She is separated from her husband. She kind of imploded the marriage on her own. It really had nothing to do with the husband. And she ends up not being able to find her newest charge. And when she does find him, she realizes that something nefarious has gone on with his death. And so she ends up working with this young kid, Connor, who's like 17, passed away, and helping him solve like what happened. And it ends up being a much deeper mystery than she thought it was going to be. But I really loved the relationship between Kathy and Connor. I think it was just like a super, super interesting book, a very cool idea. It's definitely a departure from some of the other books, but if you're looking for a cool take on a character being able to communicate with a ghost and the Grim Reaper, I recommend checking it out. I do think she's coming out with another book as well, so I'm curious to see how the series will continue. So another audiobook that I actually just finished is called Kindred Spirits at Harling Hall by Sharon Booth. And this one is pitched as like, if you like that show Ghost, you know, there's the UK one and then there's the American one that's been on, and I know it's very popular. I've watched a couple of episodes, but we have our main character whose name I need to remember. We have our main character, Callie. Similar to Collins, she has the ability to speak with ghosts and has had it since she can remember, but unlike Collins, she was basically taught to diminish it and not use it, and so she hasn't spoken to ghosts in a long time. And when we meet her, she's an adult. She has a daughter who's like 10, I think, or 11, and she is on a field trip to a place called Cotswold Village, which is like, I feel like if you're from the States, like a Georgetown, like it's a historic village from like World War I, World War II, and these kids are going for class. So she's going there, and what happens is she ends up seeing all these people who aren't there, because Cotswold, beyond being a historic village, is also full of ghosts. And the manor that the town surrounds and kind of takes care of the surrounding town doesn't just manage the town of living people, it manages the ghosts as well. And it gets the attention of our family who runs the manor, who owns the manor. And essentially, they've been looking for somebody like Callie, because actually the manor that's currently run by Sir Lawrence Davenport can only be owned by a family who can see all of the ghosts. So if you have a descendant, you can see your ancestors as ghosts there in Ruinvale, but Lawrence is able to see all the ghosts in the town. And his family has been at the manor for a while, but unfortunately his grandson, who would have loved to take over for his grandfather Brody, is unable to see ghosts. So when they find out that Callie can actually see all the ghosts in this town, they instantly invite her to the manor, essentially. Well, she goes to the manor to complain because it's a long story. But they essentially say like, hey, we'll sell you this manor for like 10 pounds or whatever, and you'll have this, and you'll help run this town and manage it for the living and the dead. And at first she says no, but ends up taking the offer after some revelations about her own daughter. And we really are getting they called this like a romance, but I would say it's primarily about Callie finding herself and then all of the ghosts and their different problems, and then we have a romance as a subplot. So if you're looking for more ghost interaction, which I would have liked in Soul Searching, I think you'll like this one. I like the second half better than the first half, but it's definitely fun. I know there's going to be additional books in the series, so I'm excited to learn more about these ghosts. I think I will definitely pick up the next one. But yeah, it's a good time. You spend a lot more time with the ghosts, and they have a much bigger part in our characters' lives. And like I said, the romance is kind of secondary, so if you're looking for that aspect, I don't know if this is necessarily the right book for you. Alright, departing from our kind of cozy mystery, cozy paranormal situation, a book series I'm going to recommend, it's a duology, is The God and The Gwisin by Sophie Kim, the Fates threads. So the first one doesn't really have ghosts, but the second one takes place on a ghost cruise. So essentially almost everybody on here is a ghost. And so it's really fun. It's got a murder mystery vibe. They both have murder mystery vibes, and it's very much like K-drama inspired. So I have a couple vlogs where I talk about these books, but essentially we have a god who has fallen out of grace in the first book, who is paired up with a Gumio, and a Gumio is a fox demon essentially, and they like steal people's souls while, well, this one they steal their spleens or something, kidneys, I don't know. But she is like, our main character is the most infamous Gumio ever, and she, in order to protect her identity, ends up becoming the assistant of the god who is trying to look for her, because if he finds her, he will finally get reinstated into the heavens again. So that's the plot of the first one, and like I mentioned, the second one takes place on a cruise in the underworld. So we've got all sorts of ghosts on there, and it's a really good time. So I'm going to recommend both of these ones, especially if you like K-dramas and are looking for just a good romp. And that about wraps up all of my little book recs here for books to check out if you enjoyed Soul Searching or you found it lacking like I did. And I would love to hear some more recommendations from you. If you have any more paranormal romances to check out, some with more ghosty vibes, drop them down below. And until next time, I hope you read a good book. I hope you find some joy. And most importantly, I hope you do something to make the world a better place. And I will see you in my next one. Bye!